Welcome to The Element of Play, the podcast for people who are tired of being told to be more productive, more disciplined, more serious, and somehow still exhausted. With your host, Jodi Salmond, marine scientist, author, speaker, and firm believer that play might just be the missing piece when it comes to leadership, connection, creativity, and coming back to life. Let's get into it.
What if joy isn't the opposite of grief, but actually how you survive it? Welcome to The Element of Play, where we explore how to bring a little bit more play back into your daily life. Sometimes that it's got a little bit too heavy, too serious, or too burnt out. I'm your host, Jodi, and today I am lucky enough to be joined by the amazing Jeremy Greening. Now, Jeremy is a pastor who spent years walking alongside people through grief, heartbreak, and some of life's hardest seasons. He's also the founder of Valleys to Victory, a space offering coaching, courses, and resources to help people move forward through difficult chapters of their life. But before I read out your entire bio, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you, Jeremy, in exactly who you are and what you've been up to.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on your podcast, Jodi. So there's a fair bit to me, but I'll see how we go. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a pastor, as you said, I'm a coach, and I'm the founder of Valleys to Victory. And I guess for over a couple of decades now, I've had the privilege of walking alongside people through some of life's hardest seasons, both personally and professionally. Along the way, I've experienced my own valleys as well, and that's how I like to support people through lived experience, not just through stuff I've read in a textbook. I've gone through things from losing my dad suddenly, multiple family losses, financial challenges, a serious car accident, seasons of life where I didn't think things went the way that I'd expected. So I've walked that journey too in a lot of different spaces that your listeners could probably relate to. And I guess those experiences combined with years of helping others has taught me that people don't just need encouragement. I mean, encouragement's great, but they also need a pathway forward. And so that's why I created Valleys to Victory.
Yeah, great. And I would like to preface this by saying that we've actually chatted before on on your podcast. And what I found really fascinating and I really adore is that, for starters, as you mentioned, everybody has their own valleys. And it's through these that we actually are able to learn so much about ourselves, but also that recognition that, you know what, sometimes they're really, really hard, but there is always a way out. And so I love that you have this beautiful nature of connection and understanding with individuals, but it's also really important that you have lived this experience as well. So I guess what I wanted to ask is, you've told us a little bit about Valleys to Victory. Was there anything in particular that really sparked your interest in going, you know what, I've been doing all of this for so long and I've been supporting people for so long, I'm ready to create my own product here?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in life chooses to walk through a valley. We end up just getting placed there through different seasons of life. But, every one of us experiences them. So it's something that's common amongst everyone. Yeah, for me personally, it wasn't just one event. It was a series of them. And like I alluded to earlier, I lost my dad. He died of a heart attack while overseas. So it was very tragic, very sudden. He was a huge source of encouragement for me and affirmation in my life. And when he passed away, I realized how much of my sense of approval came from him. And then there were other family losses. My mother-in-law passed away in a car accident suddenly. My father-in-law passed away from lymphoma cancer. One week he's picking up our son, his grandson, from school. Then 4 weeks later, he's gone. That's how quickly it took him. And so I've gone through many difficult seasons, and I've also seen others walk through many difficult seasons too. And at the same time, I guess I've spent a couple of decades, as I said, watching people go through these journeys. And I thought, you know what, there's just not enough help out there. People that can sit and walk alongside people through life's biggest challenges and give them a simple pathway forward. I mean, I'm not bagging counselors and psychologists and, that level of help. If you need it, I'm always going to encourage you to get that. But I'm really practical. As you said, it's lived experience. See, people don't just need someone to sit with them in their pain. They also need someone to gently help them believe that, there's still a future beyond your current valley that you're in now. So that's where I guess Valleys to Victory was born. The whole heart behind it is simply to acknowledge the valley, but don't let it become your destination.
And I love that. And I love that, as you mentioned, you've not only had those experiences, and I do want to say, I'm so sorry that you've gone through that. And I also acknowledge that some of the moments that you've just kind of shared with us then is some of it not expected, but it was a little bit longer time versus a really immediate thing like a car accident is actually, it really puts life into perspective, doesn't it? That A, it's short, but also those moments of it can happen at any time. You can be as safe as you want, but sometimes you don't recognize that there is tragedy just around the corner. So it's a beautiful way of also kind of remembering that we are human, things happen, and hey, maybe there's ways that we can forget all of the terrible stuff along the way. We can actually forgive people. We can find our way back to joy and our own spark and get out of burnout because at the end of the day, as we all know, no one ever sits on their deathbed wondering if they should have done more work, right?
Yeah, that's totally right. Yeah, look, I think grief and loss and burnout and all these difficult things that we face that I'm calling valleys are so unique. We're not born with this innate ability to know how to walk through these situations. We don't get taught this stuff at school. We just don't know. And the other thing is, and I think you alluded to this earlier, we can't box people in little boxes of this is how we treat grief and this is how we treat burnout, because it's absolutely different for everybody. And so I think just having someone that has had lived experience that can, I guess, do more than sympathize. Sympathize says, oh, I feel so sorry for you.
Yeah.
But empathize takes it a step further when we empathize and we actually can relate because of lived experience. And so I think it's just gaining that appreciation of everyone's unique, everyone's valley is different. And you know what? People just need support. And so I think if you go in with that attitude, rather than, oh, I'm going to go in and fix this and put it in a box and here's the blanket answer, that's not what people are looking for. People are looking for just understanding, to be seen, and to have a simple pathway forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I would say my partner's favorite saying is actually seek to understand. So he asks a lot of questions all the time, but it's because he's genuinely trying to find the not even just the common ground, but understand why someone is interacting in a certain way or why a project has gone a certain way. Like it's always about gaining as much information as you can and being open and curious. And like you said, that way you don't actually have to put people in boxes or give them titles for the sake of a title. I know that sometimes our brain loves to understand things by titles, but it's not actually that helpful for anyone. And I think, as you mentioned, just simply being able to sit with someone, listen to them, right? That communication aspect of sitting, listening, also offering presence is actually massive. Being able to support someone through that presence, and then, like you said, allowing them to move through those valleys themselves is actually really important. And I don't think there's actually enough credit given to the fact that if you have a support network, it can absolutely change your entire life.
100%. I think having the right support network around you is the game changer. I think anyone going through a valley, the tendency is to want to try and get through this alone. I mean, I think of our Aussie culture, she'll be right, mate. And we just, we carry our burdens and we try and find our way through the difficult situation. But in a hard season, people don't really know what they need. They think they do. Oh, I'll just, time will heal all wounds or whatever. That's the biggest lie known to mankind because just waiting for this thing to lift, it's not going to magically just disappear one day. It's what we do with that time that helps us to heal. I think the first thing people need is permission to stop pretending they're okay. That's what I believe they need, because we keep pretending, we put up appearances, we make out like everything's fine. So many people carry this invisible pressure that says I should be coping better than I am, but on the outside we're putting up the tough front. So it's
Yeah.
that balance of keeping up appearances, but then actually realizing, something is deep within me that needs dealing with, and I need help, and that it's okay to get to that place. One of the first things you've got to do is try and remove the shame of admitting that you're in a valley or whatever it is
Yeah.
you're going through. Remove that shame, because there's no shame. But immediately we go there and then we hide it and we try and be strong and carry it internally. But as we said, community, getting people around you that are going to cheer you on and support you through your journey. I think that's what people actually do need. And the more people that hear that and accept that, the more I believe people are going to be free from shame, free from what they're going through, and actually open up to a whole world where people can assist you and speak into that space and carry you through your valley. You don't have to do it alone, I guess, is the message I'm trying to bring.
Yeah, and I really love, I guess we get to cheat a little bit because we've been speaking about this a little bit most recently. And I love what you've discussed previously and that idea of like keep moving forward. We've spoken at depth about the idea of like it's just those tiny little moments. If you can notice one moment at a time, it can actually make significant changes. And that's both for yourself, but also for your friends and family. And I think what's really interesting is like we're very much talking about the individual here, but actually sometimes it's just other people noticing that maybe you're not quite as all right as you normally are. And so sometimes a simple thing of going, hey, do you want me to make dinner for you? Or I've made too much tonight. I'm going to drop some off at your house. Seems really silly. But for somebody who's really overwhelmed or burnt out or going through something, that small act of genuine kindness can be an absolute game changer and really allow them to pivot a little bit easier because it just feels that little bit lighter, right? It's one less decision they have to make is what do I have to cook? So those tiny little decisions can actually help people continue to move forward as well.
And I think it's moving from that survival mentality to, like, I like to put it this way. I like to help people not just survive, but actually thrive. You can live again post valley. You know, you don't have to camp in your valley. So a lot of us like camping. We like to stay there because it's comfortable. And if I just stay here and I bring comfort around the valley that I'm in, think of it like camping and we turn it into glamping. We've got the pillow now. We've got the comfy seat. We've got gee, it's really nice here. But the truth is you were never meant to stay in your valley. You were meant to walk through your valley. And so I think people struggle to move from surviving to actually feeling that they're alive again. And I think again it starts with that permission, giving yourself permission to stop pretending, permission to admit you're struggling, permission to grieve, permission to rest, permission to ask for help if you need it. All those things, give yourself permission and don't camp in your valley because some people think that if I step into healing, well, let's talk about grief specifically for a moment. You know, if I move on, I'm forgetting my past. That's the label that we put on it. But moving on isn't forgetting. It's just learning how to carry the love that you had for the person that's passed or whatever's happened to cause your grief, learning to carry that forward in a new way. And so you don't have to camp in that valley of grief for the rest of your life. Are you going to be instantly healed from grief? No, you're not, because there's no timeline. And same goes for burnout and anxiety and all these other things. You can't put a timeline on your healing, but we can learn to carry forward that which matters most to us forward in a new way.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a couple of key things you mentioned there. One is that idea of stop camping in there, right? I do like camping. A lot of Australians like camping, as you mentioned, but there is the ability to step out. And I think it's how do you use that? How do you use that as fodder almost, right? So we do have all of these experiences and we can actually use them as you have mentioned yourself. Like you've used these experiences to then really pivot or utilize them to actually help others. And what I do want to kind of pivot on as well, though, is you mentioned this a little bit in terms of your healing, etc. But everything that I have worked on and been working on for the last few years is actually really looking at the element of play and why play and joy and laughter and that element of lightness is actually really important. And I feel that everybody wears this badge of busyness as like a badge of honor at the moment, right? But that's not actually helping anybody, especially society when there's so many burnt out humans. It's an $8.8 trillion industry for burnt out humans at the moment. Like that's what it costs the global economy at the moment. So we know it's not working as it is. So if we're looking at how do we get ourselves back to feeling more alive, to feeling like we're moving out of that valley and more to our spark, our lightness, our aliveness, how do you think that the joy, play, laughter, etc., actually help with healing and rebuilding again?
Yeah, I honestly think that, you know, things like joy, play, laughter, healing, they play a bigger role than what people realize, particularly when we're talking about, I guess, grief and loss. One of the things I've observed over the years is that people often feel guilty when they start smiling again or maybe it's post anxiety or post whatever, and you start enjoying life again, but you almost feel like, oh, do I have permission to do this? Shouldn't I be sad, or am I allowed to move on and actually smile and laugh again? Or, if I enjoy today, am I dishonoring what's happened to me or the loved one that I had? But I've come to believe that that's just simply not true. And I think some of your listeners need to hear that today and receive that. See, joy doesn't replace grief. That's what we do in our minds. We think, oh, if I'm going to be full of joy now, well, now I don't have grief anymore. But they can actually exist alongside each other as you go through the valley and work through a process. You can deeply miss someone and still genuinely laugh. That's totally okay. You can carry sorrow about something that might have happened to you or something in your past, but still experience peace. In fact, I think these moments of joy that you need to give yourself again permission to have, they remind us that we're still alive. We're still here, we're still breathing, and there's a life to be lived. And they're not signs that we're forgetting our past, but they're signs that healing is quietly doing its work. So I think they can coexist. It's not either or, but I think it's both and.
Yeah, I love that. And some of those moments that you just explained there, I think it's so important because actually you're right. It's like we need permission. And sometimes I've seen it, right? Like I think what happens is some people, there's an element of judgment because everybody's timeline on grief is different. And some people assume that a timeline has to be much longer than it is, right? So you see someone smiling and something bad has happened to them. So there's this element of, well, why are they so happy or they shouldn't be quite so happy yet. But that's a complete judgment. And obviously that's not everybody by any means. But I also think those kind of games play in our own heads in that. So I love that you said permission. It's almost like, you know what? Anyone listening today is we both give you all permission to smile, to be silly, to be grateful for the opportunity of life that you have, and also permission to play, to be silly, to laugh, to go and hang out with your friends and family. Because when you need it, you need it. Your body needs it. And so I love that you said permission because I think that's extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people forget joy when life becomes difficult. They forget
Yes.
it. They lose it. I think when life becomes heavy, people become incredibly focused on surviving, like I said, rather than thriving. And so I
Yeah.
love to help people to push past that barrier of just need to get through today. Well, no, let's start thriving again. What's one little thing you can do today to bring that little spark back, that little bit of joy back into your world? And it's not dishonoring the fact that you're dealing with something or going through something. That's fine, but they can coexist. You can be working through a process and still experience some measure of joy in your day.
100% agree. I love that so much. And what I'm going to do is ask you one very important question that I love to ask everybody is what does play mean to you?
It's such a great question, and I really think all of your listeners are challenged by this question because we've been brought up with this understanding of what we think play is. Before getting to know you and your work, Jodi, if someone asked me that question, I'd probably would have thought, well, it's playing a game or a sport or, something that children do. But our conversations that we've had have genuinely expanded my understanding and thinking of what play is. So today I actually see play very differently. I see it as something that can reconnect us with the life that we were created to live. I think that play is it's those moments where we stop merely existing and start truly engaging with life again in a meaningful way. Sometimes that can be laughing with the family around the dinner table, or maybe going for a walk through nature, or sitting by the ocean, which I know is beautiful for you. You love the ocean. Sometimes it's like trying something new without worrying whether we're going to be good at it or not. I don't think play is about escaping reality. That's important to point out. But I think it's about actually reconnecting with it.
I love that. That is a beautiful answer.
Mm.
And I do think it's really important that, yeah, because I personally believe that there are so many different types of play. I do have a second book coming out all about that because over 25 years of watching individuals just interact with each other. We spoke about this previously, but this idea of like, if you go to the gym or go for a walk on the beach, that is one element of how you can actually interact with play. And you mentioned it earlier as well, that it's the first thing that disappears. If you've got a busy life, or you've got stress happening, or there's traumatic experiences, the first thing that happens is joy is wiped out. And yet, joy, playfulness, play is actually the very quickest way to get back to yourself, to feel yourself again, to feel that you are more alive, and again, to get more spark back in your life. So why is it that we leave it until, once the to-do list is done, or, you're finally back from home, anything at all, we don't book it in. And I actually think it's the number one thing that should be booked into a calendar. Make sure you have time for yourself. You have those playful moments. And instead of just pushing them away, embrace them instead. So you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier as well, like these little things. So, like for me, I go for a walk on the beach and I have this thing. I love skipping at the beach. I don't know what it is. I love it. And I had this theory that if you skipped, it's a way more efficient mode of transport than running. So I got everyone at the gym skipping one day. I was like, no, no, this is going to be great. And then about 100 meters in, I'm like, this is a terrible idea. Skipping is great for about 50 to 100 meters. And past that is a terrible, terrible idea. It's not efficient at all after that. But everybody burst out laughing, right? Because they're like, yeah, this is terrible. But as you mentioned before, if you don't get like caught up in what it means and what are people thinking and oh my goodness, am I doing it right? Mate, fail forward, laugh wholeheartedly and drop that persona of you have to perform all of the time, but instead be real. Like people can tell if you're authentic and you love life, and it seems to emanate, and we know that it creates ripples. So if
Yeah.
you can change the way that you interact with people, even if it's one moment a day, then you start to create those ripples where it has massive effects for others. So for you, what is one of the things that you do as a playful element? Like if you're going to book your things in every week, what do you do for you?
Yeah, for me, I've just taken up walking and I love it. And it might sound so simple, but it's a moment where I switch my phone on do not disturb and it's really sacred time. So, I mean, as a pastor, as someone who's running multiple businesses, I've got people reaching out to me all the time, pings, messages. It's so good to switch off and actually just get out and enjoy nature and just walk. I started doing this when we were recently on holidays and we were at Coolangatta, which is in Queensland, beautiful coastal area, and we just had the best walks. And now I'm back in Stanthorpe doing it, and it's freezing cold because that's where I live. Stanthorpe is the coldest town in Queensland. But you know what? I'm still admiring and loving the outdoors when I do it, and it's just I feel so refreshed and my head is clear, and then I feel like I can get to my things throughout the day without the clutter and the noise in my headspace. So I love doing that.
Awesome. And I do enjoy a good walk along the beach. It's like my happy space, most definitely. I wanted to kind of just ask you about your valleys to victory. We've talked about it a bit, but in terms of the victory, we've talked a lot about the valleys and some of the ways that we can get out of that and some of the really cool, very simple ways to get there, right? Because we know burnt out humans don't need big lists. That's not going to help. Just give us one thing at a time, right? So
That's
for
right.
you, what does victory mean to you or to others? Like, and how has that changed from potentially your like throughout your life?
Look, I think victory can sound a bit overwhelming to some people because they think it needs to be this big master moment where all the stars align and the planets align and whatever, and everything is great in my life. But the message that I like to bring, and that's why I'm called Valleys to Victory, it's a journey and you're taking steps and there's small steps. Again, some people think I need to take these giant leaps to make it to my victory. But I prefer people take baby steps because sometimes we can take a giant leap and yeah, there's a short-term win, but that fades very quickly because it isn't bringing lifelong transformation or change. Motivation and momentum comes from simple, small, tiny steps taken daily. And then that's where your momentum will come from towards your victory. And so the way I design how I present different courses and things that I lead people through is to just encourage them, what small step can you take today? Because even just taking one baby step today is a victory. And then you'll have your next victory. And then your next, each and every day, taking these small steps. Now, do we ever get healed of grief? Do we ever get healed of anxiety? It's a journey. And I'm not going to put that expectation on people. But I think that's what people do when they think of victory. They think, well, this needs to be gone out of my life and then I have victory. No, no, it's the small intentional steps taken each and every day as you move towards your victory. And that's it's the little wins. That's what we celebrate along the way.
I love that. Look, there's so many books out there, right? Atomic Habits is one of the first ones that comes to mind with that idea of like, it is all about those tiny, tiny steps. And even
Yeah.
practicing gratitude. If you just think about, again, same thing like gratitude journals. I have one, and sometimes it gets really hard because you think you have to write a lot. But actually, put 3 words down, right? That is a step. And if you can't do that, put 1 word down. Just something to capture because you're training your brain and your body to see the beautiful things in the world.
Yep.
And there's so much research to shows that it's true. So it's like choose those moments, choose those steps, those atomic habits, those tiny little moments. You start collecting them, and each one of those actually leave clues as to what makes you a happier human, a more joyful, lighter, more present human. And as you start to collect those, you take slightly bigger steps and you start climbing up that hill a little bit quicker, right? I love it.
Yeah, 100%.
So before we kind of leave, I've got 2 things. One, I would love to know for everybody around, how can everybody actually find you? So we've been talking about so many things, but I guarantee people want to know.
Yeah,
Can you
no,
help?
absolutely. I'm more than happy to help people. And at the moment, I've got specific content helping around grief and loss. But in the very near future, we're going to be helping people going through anxiety and burnout, going through mindset challenges, relationship challenges, all the big ones that really we can all call valleys that we've either walked through ourselves or we know someone who has. And so I'm really excited to help people. So if people want to connect with me and get some help in that space, my website is valleys2victory.com. That's TO, not the number 2, valleys2victory.com. And they can go there. They can sign up to my free community where you'll get an email every week letting you know some mindset encouragement, some encouraging words that will help you get through week to week. But not only that, as a bonus for people joining my community, I've actually written a chapter that's part of a book called Stories of Strength. And you can look that book up on Amazon, Stories of Strength. And the chapter that I have in there is called Keep Moving Forward and Thrive. And I just want to help people to move forward in life. And that is my gift to you. So when you join our free community, you'll get emailed a link to be able to access that chapter right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just before we actually close out today, for those that don't know too much about the show yet, I do something that is called the Play of the Week. And that is all about what's one small action that you can take for this week to add just a little bit more joy into your life. So we've been speaking about lots of little steps today and moving away from those traumatic events or trauma or grief, etc., into how do we become that nice, lighter, more enthusiastic and alive human that we want to be with the most amount of sparks possible. So my play of the week for everyone this week is based on the things that we've been talking about today. What is one small action that you can do? Is it as simple as smiling at a stranger? Is it buying someone a coffee? Or is it simply going outside and watching the stars or the clouds go past? Anything at all that creates movement in your body and that creates that little bit of spark, no matter how small it is a clue to realizing who you are and who you were always meant to be. So until next time, thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and your compassion for absolutely everyone.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
I love it. Thank you. And I hope that our conversations continue because so far it's been wonderful getting to know you a bit better on and off screen. And until next time, please remember, everyone, add a little play into your day and feel a lot more human.
Thanks for listening to The Element of Play. If this sparked something in you, follow the show, share it with someone who needs it, and come find me at elementofplay.com. Stay curious, stay playful, and remember, life was never meant to be beige.